It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. We're live, my friends. It is the 23rd day of June 2013. I am your host, Alex Jones, and we are going to be live here for the next 2 hours as we are every single Sunday. And, of course, we come back weekdays live 11 to 2 Central as well. I have absolutely spent hours Friday and yesterday on Saturday and today thinking about the things I want to say here today. And I've probably said this 100 times in just the last few years when I start a broadcast, and I've never really succeeded in getting in that quiet, focused place and then just presenting the real essence of what's going on to everybody so that we can understand what we're facing as a culture and a society. So when we start the next segment, I will start plowing into the first big report that I want to get into. The case of Michael Hastings, the associate editor of Rolling Stone magazine, who had recently been planning to release a lot of really powerful information concerning General Petraeus, the CIA, NSA, you name it. He was working on all of it. So we're going to be getting into all of that today, and the fact that hiding in plain view on Friday, the TV stations in L.A. and then the L.A. Times were forced to report on what WikiLeaks and then everybody else in the real media was talking about on Wednesday and Thursday. And that is that Hastings said that he was going into hiding and that he was being followed by the FBI and that they were harassing his friends and family. Now, the fact that they've had a bunch of old dinosaur media and then other fake alternative media come out and make fun of people. New York Daily News, New York Magazine, Daily Caller, come out and say, oh, look at the crazies. They're saying that he could have been murdered. It would be surprising if he was not murdered with all of this evidence. And how would you have someone who's reporting on big national security stories and who is exposing top generals and people are losing their jobs over it, and then he comes out on television and says we should release all the NSA data, we should have the press stop complying with this corrupt government? He said that about a week before his car blew up. And I've looked at the evidence. It looks like a car bomb. But even that particular model of Mercedes is absolutely remote controllable. And that's in Car and Driver. I'm going to be showing you that news where they could drive him at 100 miles an hour into the tree, except I've seen what the eyewitnesses said of the explosion and how it basically came up to rest up against a tree, not really into the tree. But it's a bigger issue here, not that the establishment kills people, but that the media is so compliant in going along with this and then criticizing people. I mean, you'd be crazy to not look at a murder investigation, to not look at it being foul play. But day one, they said no foul play, which is always another big telltale sign. We've got that big story. We've got police busting in people's houses over 3-inch grass in their yards. We've got the latest geopolitically and the latest on Snowden planning to go to Ecuador. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, we're here live. And then I come back Sundays live, and we're live 4 to 6 p.m. also Central Standard Time. And I want to thank you for joining us on this live Sunday broadcast. The 23rd day of June, 2013. All right, we are going to try to cover a lot of ground here today, looking at what the kleptocratic establishment is up to and ways that humanity is trying to awaken itself and also organize against all of this tyranny. But I really want today to try to calmly go over this news and information and really have the listeners take notes, whether they be physical or mental, and to go follow along either today or tomorrow or tonight, whenever you have time, with the information I'm going to present here so that you can discover for yourself how much trouble we're in. The United States is a very wealthy, powerful country because we've had more liberty and freedom than other nations. That does not mean that we were some paragon of justice, but compared to most other nations, we have empowered the middle class, we have empowered the individual. But because of that, we became the most powerful nation on earth, and then corrupt influences moved in to capitalize on that power and wealth. And now, as tyranny takes hold and as crony monopoly systems take hold in government, interfacing with major offshore corporations, we see the justice and the liberty, and along with that, the prosperity exiting very, very quickly. And we have a mix of malaise, general naivete in the public that mixed with high-tech propaganda and complexity in government is a recipe for allowing government tyranny to grow to a level that it has never before been seen on the face of this globe. And make no mistake, no historian would disagree with you. I challenge you to find one that would, if you make the point that government has been the greatest non-natural killer of masses of people in history. University of Hawaii did a study a few years ago and found that conservatively government in the 20th century alone, in the 100 years preceding 2001, if you look at the previous 100 years, government confirmed killed 262 million people, men, women, and children that were non-military deaths. I'm not talking about people dying in the firebombing of Dresden, Germany, or the fragmentation bombing of London, vice versa. I'm talking about government lining people up and shooting them or working them to death in death camps. And so my great concern, being a novice historian and someone who's into common sense, is that we're taught that government is like mommy's milk and the best thing since air conditioning, and that all it can do is good for us, and that anybody that questions it is a traitor. If you go up to Infowars.com today, there is a Anthony Freda graphic on the front page in the featured news area, and it's a giant Uncle Sam hand pointing down to a man on the plane, and he says, "I think we should restore the rule of law and Bill of Rights, stop waging illegal wars, and stop illegal surveillance of American citizens." That's what the man is saying, the American. And Uncle Sam is pointing his finger saying, extremist. And that's not satire at all. That's actually what the system does. You see, once a country starts putting up with corruption, and once corruption takes hold and becomes the economy, and once the mafia system of government and gangs gets in place, and once the crime is inculcated into the culture, like a too big to fail for the offshore banks that run our country by design into the ground. Once they can sell you on we're too big to fail, you can't remove us. The cancer has metastasized. Embrace the cancer. Once we get to that point, there is probably no coming back. And the corrupt hordes of people on the dole, people with corporate welfare, government, and then all the accompanying bureaucracies of groups that have scores to settle and, different cliques and groups that are allied with the power structure, they will go out and feed on and abuse and hunt down the good and virtuous. That's how tyranny works. Because the good and virtuous won't organize and get together and defend themselves generally, and they can't even imagine the tyranny because their brains don't work like that. They have no autoimmune system to it, and the power structure will demonize groups as things begin to contract to rob them. It isn't that you'll even resist them. It isn't that the system will come after you because you fight against them. It will come after you because you're not part of a crew. You're not part of a gang. You're not part of a power structure. This is how the world has always worked. Our founders said, we'll get the middle class together, organize with weapons, and have rules that we will absolutely go after any big government that tries to violate any of these basic rights, because we've seen throughout history that when they go after these rights, hell follows. So it was about a gang of liberty, a gang of freedom, a gang of independence, a gang of the individual. That we, the individuals, would band together when people tried to form gangs to come feed on us. But we were taught it was sexy and cool not to want to be part of the Liberty Gang. We were taught it was sexy and cool to be corrupt. We were taught that that's how you got ahead, by not caring about your neighbors, by not caring about anybody in the society but yourself. We were taught that laughing at people that warn about big government and warn about the Bill of Rights and Constitution was somehow a shield against tyranny. We were sold cultural death. We don't have a culture in America. What, you think football's our culture? You think acting tough's the culture, or acting trendy's the culture? People regurgitate and reflect what the culture put out by Hollywood, which is a weaponized culture, which is a system to where you don't really have a culture. And if you have no culture and you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. And we're at that historic crossroads. I've got big news coming up after the break, where either the corruption all comes out in the open, as it is, because it's emerging, it's taking over, it's metastasizing, and we reject it. Our body beats the cancer. We vomit out the poison. Or if we tell ourselves, no, this isn't poison, and we don't take measures against it, we will surely die as a republic. And it will happen very quickly. We're not talking about your children's time now. We've been saying that for 20 years. Now it is the time of your children, the time that they've grown up and their children. And so all the rot you've seen the last 100 years or so under the Federal Reserve governorship, the foreign banking cartel, all of the rot you've seen will now be doubled just the next 3 or 4 years. And then doubled again and doubled again. We've gone off the cliff, folks. We're off the cliff now. We're in free fall. I'm going to break down absolute evidence of American whistleblowers and media people being exterminated by Obama NDAA death squads. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live. Coming up, I'm going to get into the Edward Snowden situation, going to Russia, and then he's planning to hop a plane to another South American country, hoping to try to get some type of political asylum there. We're going to be breaking that down in the next segment, and the responses of the establishment saying this guy's a traitor. The people that are engaged in the spying against the American people are the ones that are breaking the law. We're going to be going over that. In fact, I have known someone that worked for Air Force Intelligence and the NSA for about 15 years. I know him very well. He's a good friend of mine. And he also worked on the Apollo program. You can see him there. He's been on the show before. You can see him in the Apollo program on the very front line. He was one of the main mission controllers. And he came by the office. He's 71 years old. He came by the office Thursday. And he's agreed to come on in a few weeks. Not about NSA. But he said, I'll tell you this. And he had trouble even saying that. He said there was 150,000 analysts in D.C. alone when I was involved in it in the 70s, the last time he was involved there. And I've known this guy forever, and he was having trouble saying it. And he goes, and they said they will kill anyone at the graduations at the Air Force and then another one. Anyone that talks will be killed. So that's why Snowden came out. It's Raymond Teague. He was here Thursday, in case anything happens to Raymond. But he's not going to give out any NSA secrets. We know what you're doing. And he was just talking about everything. Then was just in printouts with computers and then analysts listening and it being typed out in just sheets to be sent off to other people. And it was everything. It was, he said, narcotics trafficking. He said that all the analysts knew the government ran almost all the drugs and that you just weren't supposed to say anything. You just sat there, and they had the analysts listening, typing it all out, and then it was in teletypes being sent off. 150,000 analysts in D.C. alone. And by the way, Raymond was in a meeting with, well, John Bound, you were in the meeting. Yeah, turn your microphone on. Tell people about it. You were in there.
Yeah, I just sat in awe of what this guy was saying.
And by the way, I've been to his house and everything. I mean, he's got the national security letters all over on the wall. He's got a presidential medal. Anyways, we'll get into it more later. I mean, the point is, it's unbelievable. And Raymond would never really tell me much about this. He said, "Well, this is in the 70s, and I'm not giving you specifics, but absolutely." And I've known people in the modern NSA. Well, you've heard him on here as guest. And so it's so naive when Snowden comes out and says that they're going to try to kill me last week, and the media's like, preposterous, that's ridiculous, no one would try to kill anybody. And then the Daily Mail was in the Dulles Airport outside Chantilly, Virginia, named after the former head of the CIA, and heard a bunch of analysts and CIA bragging in the concourse of how we need to kill this guy. I mean, I've had people with access to NSA stuff call up many times, my wife and I, tell us what we're talking about to try to freak us out, and then go into talking about how they're going to kill us. I mean, that's what the government does with this. This has happened to me. Okay, I have lived it. I have experienced it. And people are so incredibly naive. And by the way, you better learn who set up the CIA. The British intelligence. You better learn this country, since about 1923 with the Council on Foreign Relations, that was openly British intelligence. Look it up, Pratt Street, New York. That's on record, to take over the U.S. government with money and finance and corporate dollars. And then you look at the CIA being set up out of the OSS in 47. And then you look at what's come out in congressional hearings. It's not like it's my opinion the CIA brings in most of the narcotics or oversees it for the big banks. The big banks got caught last year laundering $378 billion. Two banks alone, Wachovia and Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo owned Wachovia. And I mean, that was in AP, in Reuters, in Bloomberg. I've probably read that on air 50 times to you. And they didn't get in trouble. They actually ran the aircraft. These companies run the weapons, all of it. I mean, where do you think $1 trillion a year in narcotics money goes? Half of it, the money's North America. Yeah, there it is, banks financing Mexican gangs admitted in Wells Fargo deal, Bloomberg. You know how frustrating it is to know that I can go to a family reunion and there'll be a whole bunch of retired people who worked in black projects. And it's not like my family's special. This is probably the biggest corporation in the world. It's just it's the company. It is. It's all a big joke. And by the way, they're not looking out for America's interest. We are seen as idiots, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you can argue that the government did corrupt stuff 50, 60, 70 years ago to beat other bad guys, but then that stuff doesn't end when the war is over. They used narcotics trafficking and opium in and out of Sicily to undermine the Nazis. Of course, those contacts didn't end at the end of World War II. It's on record they brought in the opium inside the bodies of dead soldiers. Tons of it. The heroin. The opium to be turned into heroin. And it's the naivete. And then I think about Aaron Swartz, who got engaged to his fiancée, said, I'm going to beat this federal case, claiming I hacked, when all I did was give out public info from MIT, leading the moves to, he was really the leader of Anonymous, folks. That's really who he was. And that's come out. Of the real Anonymous. And he was beating SOPA and CISPA and organizing people and was a genius. And they went to his apartment and hung him. And then said, oh, the government drove him to death. He was saying, I'm going to beat this. 35 years in prison for releasing public data that the public paid for. I'm going to beat this. And I'm getting married. They hung him. The D.C. madam was on my show and was saying, oh, I'm keeping all this info I know, so they don't mess with me. And I said to her on air, I said, they're going to kill you. You either tell them you're not going to use the data, release it. She goes, well, how do I tell them? I said, you talk over the telephone. They're listening. And I mean, she's just, servicing all the top people there in D.C. And I said, that doesn't protect you. That's going to get you killed. They killed her a month later. She said, I'll never commit suicide. Pat Tillman wrote home, said that we're shipping the opium out. Our government runs Al-Qaeda. I'm going to go public. His brothers talked about it. And they killed him. And it was General McChrystal that ran the cover-up and probably gave the orders. And it was Michael Hastings, the associate editor of the Rolling Stone, that went and told them, oh, yeah, this is off record, and then burned McChrystal. Burned McChrystal. And, well, I guess McChrystal burned him. Or somebody did, because his car got blown sky high. All the witnesses said he's driving down the street, just blows up. An engine shot 60 yards. And then it turns out he calls family and goes, I'm on the run. They're after me. I'm going into hiding. I feel like if I said, I'm going into hiding, they're after me at the end of the show, and then my car blows up on the way home. You'd be crazy not to say it's a car bomb. We'll break it down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back live, and I'm going to get into this top story now in detail. The clear assassination of the Rolling Stone's associate editor, Michael Hastings, in Los Angeles Tuesday. And I want to be clear, one of the most common questions, or the most common question I get on the street, I got asked by BBC, by Russian TV when I was over in England a few weeks ago. I get asked this stuff constantly. If it's true the government's so corrupt, or there's criminal elements in it, that's what's really happening, and they're such gangsters, why are you still alive? And it's because God is in control, number one. Number two, a lot of people are praying for me. But number three, if they kill me, everything I've done is then highlighted. It's a big exclamation point behind it. It underlines it. But also, importantly, is that I have a media operation and a program and a plan, if I'm killed, to continue forward and to investigate my assassination. And I've had that plan in place for 5 years, and money and lawyers and everything set up and ready. Multiple plans. I've got recordings made. Some recordings. I need to make more. Because they're getting to the point where if it is all out in the open and it's that crossroads and they don't go to jail and nobody gets in trouble and we don't rein these guys in, there's always going to be corruption. But if we let it run rampant, like a red tide at the seashore, or, people peeing in the city pool to where it's so bad nobody can swim in it, if we let the corruption build up and build up and then we don't do anything about it, it will then basically redouble itself. And you're going to see societal collapse. Because why should you produce anything? It was just going to be taken from you. And in fact, they will tax things to the point of collapse because the mid and low-level people don't care and just want theirs. You see, that's the problem with a corrupt society. The will to fight it collapses, and then there's just corruption everywhere, not just the big centralized corruption, but the low-level corruption as well. And Zbigniew Brzezinski writes about this in 2 of his books, why the globalists control organized crime, why they control the narcotics traffic, why they control all the vices. Their argument is to control it and to not let it get out of control and have it basically be segregated. But it never goes that way. It always ends up collapsing, like Mexico. Mexico is a failed state with 65,000 dead people. It's times past. I was saying 60 a few months ago, I looked it up. 65,000 dead people the last 6 years that they know of, and they're finding mass graves all the time. And even the tourist areas, now they're having kidnappings and bombings and shootings, and the media's paid to not make a big deal out of it. More people have died in Mexico in the last 6 years than died in the Vietnam War in a decade on the U.S. side. Because 1 million Vietnamese died or more, but 58,000 Americans died and hundreds of thousands wounded. 60+ thousand dead. And folks, that's what we know about. Some estimates are half the murders aren't known about. There's hundreds of thousands missing, but they think some of them may have fled to other countries. That's where we're going. Why should tax money be allowed to go to fix the sewage when it could just go to El Jefe? And then he lives with his own private sewage system up on a mountain, and he likes the fact you're living down there in sewage because you're too poor to do anything to him. That's feudalism, folks. Mexico didn't invent it. Every culture with corrupt oligarchs, from ancient Japan to ancient China, to ancient Africa, to ancient Mesoamerica, to ancient Europe, to ancient Babylon, to ancient Egypt, to ancient Greece and Rome, was feudalist, except in a few periods in Greece. They were, and a few city-states. This is a cancer. Why would I risk my life, ladies and gentlemen? Because I am an honorable man. And because I am incensed at a genetic level, at a cellular level, by groups of thugs taking over. A bunch of brutes. I mean, I look at video of Russian mafia, Italian mafia, Irish mafia. There's all these mafias, but the real mafia is the banking mafia. And it's all like, you know, sticking their chest out, acting tough, strutting around, bugging their eyes out at people. That's how they dominate, is intimidation instead of beauty and creativity and what they make and what they do, where they're honored because they can write a beautiful play or invent a new technology or contribute something. And I see men in America now that more and more like men I've seen in third world countries, where men that think they're successful strut around bugging their eyes out at people, strut around acting dominant and scary, and really it's because they're scared deep down. We're being reduced back to savages. We're being reduced back to animals, and that really gets to me. And then I start thinking about Gary Webb, the Pulitzer Prize winner, had a new book coming out that totally vindicated his findings of government drug dealing. And he told me, he said, people are breaking into my house, I'm getting death threats. I'm going to come on in my book in a few months. Are you ready? And I didn't know Gary Webb that well. I interviewed him a few times. You know, I'd call him up to get him on. He'd say, no, when my book comes out. Then I talked to Sally Castile, the DEA agent. I talked to Freeway Ricky Ross, who knew him well. And they all confirmed on this show, you know, he had like special forces who'd wait till he pulled up at home and then would slide down the 2-story on the drainage pipe, you know, and then they shot him twice in the head. And I think about all the people I've known that have been killed. And I think about Aaron Schwartz was just fighting for internet freedom. And so they indicted him on fake charges. And then he said he was going to beat it and was getting engaged to be married and was laughing at the feds. So they said, you're going to laugh at us? We'll just drop by your house and hang you. They've killed hundreds of Marine Corps investigators and hundreds of Army investigators. A lot of the so-called suicides in the military are really Arkancides, suicides. And a lot of them have come out. A lot of times it comes out that they indeed were killed. Oh, you're investigating $100 million stolen out of a fund in Iraq? Boom, you're dead. It's gangsterism, where now everybody just operates as gangs, but then nothing's getting produced. And the middle class that was producing is so squeezed because the instinct of the criminal is to make you poor and slap you down and give you nothing. And so that's basically what I'm trying to talk about here today. Before I get into the evidence of Michael Hastings of the Rolling Stones being killed, is that we are becoming a total criminal society. And the naivete of the public, who deep down know this is true. Congress has a 10% approval rating. Mainstream media has the lowest approval rating ever, lowest readership, viewership ever. Obama lost 17% of his youth support in a Gallup poll just last week. People get the system's lying and conning and manipulating, but a lot of people are just giving up. Yeah, I know they're corrupt, but I just give up. And we cannot let a bunch of criminals win. We have to stand up for justice. This is our great test. This is our generation's great test. And if we'll just realize that private corporate interests that are anti-free market and pro-monopoly have come in and bought off our government and brag about it, and have taken over Europe and brag about it, they brag, and have signed on the public purse to them to prop up their derivatives that they created to tie to the public as a ball and chain. If we can have an awakening about that and have a real debate about that, we have a chance to turn this around. But we're entering that crossroads, that event horizon right now. And when you look at Agenda 21, that is the official policy of the Pentagon and the CIA and the British Ministry of Defense, it is to break up the family, shut down our industry, and really economically conquer America so that we're so dependent we can basically be force assimilated into a type of communism like the Cultural Revolution under Mao or the Great Leap Forward, or Stalin's collectivizations in Ukraine and Poland. And again, it's communism for us, which is just slavery, and then offshore diplomatic community, mega banks, and ultra-rich who are tax-exempt, who are running it and who are exempt from it all. I mean, do you understand that, folks? All right, I'm going to get into some truly epic audio and video clips. If you're a radio listener, you can simply go to Infowars.com/show to find the free video feed of the radio shows so you can actually see these clips. And for other radio listeners, we have them all linked up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. So, Michael Hastings of Rolling Stone magazine. Rolling Stone knows what they're doing. They want to sell magazines. They've done big profiles on myself and others. And they did a pretty fair job overall, because they understand that they just put out straight propaganda, nobody's going to read it. They know people want cutting-edge stuff. And Michael Hastings brought down General McChrystal, and he wrote a best-selling book on the subject as well. And he is on record the week before he died saying, I've got info on the NSA, CIA, on General Petraeus' girlfriends. And he went on Current TV with the host of the Young Turks, the main host, and said, we need to have a war back on the White House who has a war on the free press. And you can say what you want about George W. Bush. He didn't go after the press. Obama has arrested a whole bunch of different members of the press, as you know, if they talk to an analyst at the State Department publicly about, do they think North Korea, really will start a war? I mean, and these are analysts that are allowed to talk to the media. Or if you're a CIA agent and you admit, yes, we're waterboarding, yes, it's torture, and yes, it's wrong, so they go and arrest him. When if something's illegal and you whistleblow, you're supposed to be protected. No one ever had the nerve to do this, but with his fake left cover, he can do it. When Obama drops bombs on Libya and Syria and puts al-Qaeda light in charge of Egypt, it's trendy. When he invades 7 different African countries to take over with Afrikaan, it's loving and liberal because, I mean, he's a black guy. I mean, he can't do anything wrong. They use political correctness against people. Don't want Obamacare? You must be racist. Like, what does that have to do with it? Oh, shut up, racist. They are just using it on the public. And so things are at warp speed. And to get into the technicals, a bunch of engineers are on record talking about it. We have some of the articles on Infowars.com. But you don't tear away the engine from the housing of that model of Mercedes and shoot it down the road and then have the car burst into flames like that. Witnesses said as it drove down the road, it burst into flames. And then if you look at the different photos, it came up against a tree. It's not even dented by the tree. It came to rest up against a tree. And the witnesses reported an explosion that shook their houses. But that's not even the big evidence. He said 2 hours before it happened, about an hour and a half before it happened, he sent out an emergency email to his military contacts, to WikiLeaks, to family, saying FBI is visiting my friends, my family, my colleagues. They're following me. They're investigating me. You could read his email. And I'm going off the radar. I'm going into hiding. I've got big news about to break. He's going to write a story. And then his car blows up. People say, well, he was seen speeding down the road. That particular model of Mercedes can be 100% remote controlled if someone has access to the car and plugs into it. I have Car and Driver magazine, and I have DARPA projects leader breaking down how they can do this. I'm going to play those clips here. But I don't believe that's what it was, because it looks like a car bomb from past car bombs we've seen. And I've talked to some of my Navy SEAL contacts, some of my Green Beret contacts, and they say, oh, this is absolute car bomb. It's not a drone like some are saying. It's not the remote control. Then if you say that, you get laughed at, so I'm going to cover that. It's a bomb. It's a bomb in the dashboard, ladies and gentlemen, blowing him out the back and blowing the engine out the front. Very well done. Probably 10 pounds of C4. They killed him deader than a hammer. And then weird. I mean, I probably, without even looking, without trying to find them, saw 10 different articles attacking Infowars.com for Wednesday going, he told WikiLeaks he was going into hiding and the FBI was on after him and he had a big story breaking. Oh, sure, we don't believe WikiLeaks. Now, the LA TV stations and LA Times have it. Here it is on Infowars.com. LA Times reports Hastings was going into hiding before his death. You can go to our article, red linked on Infowars.com, and then go read the actual LA Times article about it. And they just have a footnote that he was going into hiding. Oh, I mean, imagine if I went on air and said, folks, this could be my last broadcast. I'm going into hiding. They're after me. I'm getting my family out of the country. And on my way home, my car blows up. And the media, day one's like, no foul play. No, don't look at it. It was no big deal. Why don't they just say Kennedy wasn't shot in Dallas, that a gnat hit him in the head and did that? Because they said Benazir Bhutto, the Pakistani president, they machine-gunned in public. They told American audiences she hit her head in her car. There's video of her being shot. So Kennedy was hit in the head by a gnat, folks. Or Kennedy's car hit a tree. Did you know that's what happened 50 years ago in Dealey Plaza? It hit a tree, folks. That's how dumb they think you are, that they run al-Qaeda publicly in Libya and Syria now and are saying, yeah, al-Qaeda's our friend. We started a war with them and we're taking over a country that did nothing to us. And then we'll be bombing them, I predict, within a year, just like I said in Libya, which happened, of giving Syria to al-Qaeda. We'll be bombing them. I mean, it is just, it is madness, folks. It is a program of deindustrialization, a program of just trillions being made in no-bid contracts, bombing Stone Age countries that can't fight back. It is so criminal. So let's go to this clip, just a few of the local news clips of them talking about what they witnessed with Michael Hastings' car. Here it is.
Rolling Stone magazine called Michael Hastings a fearless journalist who refused to cozy up to power. His death at 33 came by way of a fire-fueled and explosive crash.
It sounded like a bomb went off in the middle of the night. My house shook. The windows were rattling.
Couldn't have written a scene like this for a movie where the engine flies from the car, which was about, I don't know, 50, 60 yards up, right down here to this telephone pole.
And you can read our articles on it where they also quote them in the LA Times. A whole bunch of witnesses saying, no, it blew up as it drove down the road, then, quote, jackknifed and flew into the tree. Just driving along, boom! Do you know how much power it takes to shoot a large engine like that? They've now said it's over 60 yards. You know how much power that takes, folks? You could put an engine on top of 10 pounds of C4, and detonate it. You'd be lucky to shoot it that far. Okay? Now, let's go to what he said a week before he died on the Young Turks program. And boy, you can see them scared on the show after they talked about this. So everybody's scared to say what's happening. And being scared, folks, is what's going to allow this to take over. There were hundreds of journalists killed around the JFK assassination. I mean, are we just going to give our world over to organized gangs? Are we really going to live like this? I mean, do people that work for the system want to live like this? Because it's getting worse. I mean, you really want your kids going into a future, and your answer will be, yeah, I'm going to make sure I'm as rich and powerful and in the made group as I can so that they're protected. They won't be protected. The only thing that protects your children is being honorable. I mean, it is despicable what our country's turned into. Let's go to one of his final statements before he went into hiding and was killed. Here it is.
The Obama administration has clearly declared war on the press. It's declared war on investigative journalists, our sources. I think the only recourse to this kind of behavior by the government is to say back to the government, we declare war on you, and from this point forward, we should no longer, as a media as a whole, cooperate in any manner with the government in terms of when we're doing national security stories. We should withdraw all our cooperation, and we should publish everything we know, because it's a free press. It's not a free except for when the government tells me to do it press. And we've been way too easygoing with these guys. We've let them get away with this for years. We've let them tell us what to print, what not to print. And I say be done with it, and everybody should just get together and fire back, because no one else is going to defend the press.
Do you know what Michael Hastings just did right there? Signed his death warrant. Because he's a leader, he's respected, highly respected. Won a bunch of awards. And he basically was like Colonel Travis saying, cross this line, join me. It's an info war, fire back, never give up. We're a free press. Stop complying with these people. Stop doing what they tell you to do. Tell the truth. That would bring them down, folks. If the press stopped being lapdogs and in a group stood up together, they couldn't fire everybody. And it would be the beginning of the end. Just like when my reporter went to all 3 Boston bombings and pointed out the drill they had and the other backpacks, which turned out was true. And they have the Secret Service basically threaten his health. Dan Badandi. If that starts happening with the rest of the press, it's over for Ceausescu in Romania. It's over for Stalin. It's over for Hitler. They've got to intimidate everybody. And he decided to go all the way and was going to bring down the NSA and the CIA, and they blew him up. And it's a message, too. They know the press really knows they killed him. And now the press is so cowardly, they're attacking me for saying this should be investigated. You guys are pathetic. We'll be back in the second hour. The toll-free number to join us for first-time callers on this Sunday transmission is 877-789-ALEX. 877-789-ALEX. Again, first-time callers, 877-789-2539. I'd like to hear from you on the murder of Michael Hastings. The power structure comes out and says, it's no foul play. He was speeding. He did it. Open and shut, day one. You're like, wow, that's kind of declaratory. Yeah, just as declaratory as me saying, no, they killed him. And 95, 98% chance. And then the way they act and the way the media says, don't look at it. Don't investigate it. I mean, we really, as society, totally ruled by fear and ruled by all these disgusting gangs. You know, the big gangs are in government. The big gangs are in these corporations. And they want to be able to take and have whatever they want. You want to know what kind of world we're going to live in? The 1970s film with James Caan, Rollerball? That is exactly what they want to build, where everybody's distracted by sports. They only let certain countries have certain types of industry, so none of them can stand up on their own. There's a global corporate government. This is Club of Rome stuff. And he's the top quarterback in the world. And they tell him, you've been too big too long and lose. And they say, by the way, I want your wife. It's prima noctu. Royalty in France and England, that's on record, would demand anybody's wife they wanted. It's rollerball. And they just throw it all in our face what they're building, what they're doing, where they're above the law, they're the new royalty, they're the global corporates. And they learned it from the royalty. Diplomatic immunity. When the Queen of England shows up in America, folks, she didn't show her passport. And now hundreds of thousands of bureaucrats worldwide and corporate groups have been given diplomatic immunity. I say hundreds of thousands, there's going to be millions of diplomatic immunity. And I've talked to the kids of even low-level diplomats, how they get the brown passport. They can just do whatever they want with it. They could have drugs in their backpack. They could have a dead baby in there. It's just they're above the law. Oh, you're the UN. You're above the law. And then Brad Pitt, I went and saw World War Z. I'd read the book, seen it, seen some of the earlier scripts, but I hadn't seen it when I did that review, Man of Steel versus World War Z. And it was not 1/10 as bad as the book. I mean, the book is like, communism's good, we kill the militia, we take all their guns. But they're clearly set up for a part 2 of World War Z, where I guess all that happens. It's really kind of like the first chapter of the book. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I'm not a big zombie movie fan, and I'm not an enemy of Brad Pitt, other than the fact his wife promotes all these warmongering, globalist operations and demonizes people that are against all these wars. And it was a UN world government advertisement, and the fact that America couldn't do anything, the UN saves the world, and an inoculation advertisement. So it was pure UN propaganda placement. It was a UN film. And I guess Brad Pitt pretty much admits that. So there's my little 2 cents on that. But, I gave Superman, the Man of Steel, 9 out of 10 Paul Revere horses, just because it's pro-man, pro-father, anti-eugenics, pro-individual. I mean, it's very positive. Just like the new Tom Cruise movie, Oblivion, I'd give it 9 horses. I'm not just being generous there. And I said 0 horses for it, but I said I hadn't seen it yet. I said if it's like the book, 0 horses, I'd give it 3 horses. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, so there you go. Not really a mea culpa. When we come back, I'll get back into Hastings and then take your phone calls. Then I'm going to get into Snowden. I'm going to get into a bunch of police state news. You know, the police are going to bust your house down over your grass. Yeah, any excuse. 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. Specifically, do you like the mafia government we live under? That's getting worse every day. And the fact that it's openly trying to convert America over to classical authoritarianism and the rest of the world to secure the ill-gotten gains of the criminal ruling class that are anti-free market, anti-family, anti-individual? Or are we going to stand up against it? Or are we just going to give up? Because if the individual starts speaking out and resisting and not complying, and when you see something, say something. You know, Edward Snowden saw massive illegal NSA wiretapping across the board, and the media lying about it, and targeting the Tea Party, and the press, that's now come out, and conservative and libertarian company owners. That's in the news today. Using the IRS, the NSA to harass people. What, do we all go wear Mao Zedong shirts? And then they'll be nice to us? Because the average American now is so into being cowardly, so into complying. I want to explain, if you all put Mao shirts on, the whole country will collapse, and they killed 60 to 80 million people. No one knows the exact number. The Chinese say 80 plus million Mao killed, because everybody did what he said. They submitted, and they killed him. I mean, I saw people holding their hat in their hand and bowing to the Nazis on those old films when they would, run into the sand pits to be shot with other dead bodies in there. They would be very politely go in there. And I guess I'm an extremist because I'm not planning to do that. I'm planning to peacefully try to change this as much as I can. And if anybody tries to take me somewhere, and we learn they're taking dissidents to places and killing them, then you have to defend yourself, and that means offense. And I guess, in Nazi Germany, they would call somebody who didn't sit there and women stripped down naked in pits holding their babies. I guess if the woman would have fought back, they'd have called her a terrorist. And I'm not being sarcastic here. That really went on, ladies and gentlemen. saying yes, yes, yes to everything is going to destroy our future. Rolling over, submitting, being passive has gotten us to this point. And where is the self-preservation of the media? I know most of you are just kind of establishment fellow travelers. You've already got a cynical worldview. You just go along to get along. You don't research geopolitics. You don't research black ops. You don't research the private Federal Reserve. You don't research eugenics, the Club of Rome. You don't research Rand Corporation plans. I wish you would. I mean, they lay out. I remember reading 15 years ago the plan to federalize all police, set up checkpoints, get rid of the family, break down society, convert to basically permanent martial law. It's the domestic military stability force. And then now they've got it in place under Northcom, and they're openly rolling it out. And people go, oh, yeah, the Army, Alex, sure, martial law. They're not going to call it martial law. And then all these cowards think they're just going to go along with it, and you're going to be okay. They're setting that up. You've already put up with all this and done nothing. They know that. They're setting this up because they're going to do things so horrible, they know you're going to physically resist. You understand that? They want a war with us, but on their terms. And I'm sorry, it's not going to happen on your terms, because many of us reverse engineered what you were doing, and we're aware of it decades before I even came on the scenes. Mainly former military officers and people that blew the whistle. And a lot of them got killed. People in the 50s, 60s, and 70s who were in the NSA, CIA, Army intelligence. I can name them here on air, who went public and warned people. Most of them were murdered. That's why everything the old-timers in the John Birch Society told people in the 60s, notice it all came true, just what they said was going to happen. You know why? Because they were good people in the government and in Congress and in the Ford Foundation who blew the whistle. So the fact that the Army admits they've built civilian inmate labor camps for political dissidents and, quote, re-education, we just showed the Army manual, FM 3-39.40. That's declassified. We first got it and put it out, so the Army strangely then released it themselves and said, it's no big deal. See, they're smart. That took some of the power from it. When people were like, is this real? Is it real? And 2 weeks later, it shows up on the Army site. They go, yeah, it's ours. Big deal. Re-education camp. It's good to be re-educated. The government is rogue. The government's been hijacked. We're all in danger. The danger is going along with these loons because they want to extinct freedom. They want to hunt it down and re-educate us so that we never get out from under them. They know evil almost always ends up losing. They know their own nature. They know we're going to push back. And so for decades, they've made fun of anybody. Oh, he says they want our guns. Oh, nobody wants your guns when they're on record wanting our guns. He says they want open borders. Nobody wants open borders. Oh, really? Here's the bill about to pass. He says fluoride gives you cancer and brain damages you. Oh, here's a bunch of Harvard studies saying he's right. He's still a kook. Oh, shut him up. And then they say, arrest Snowden. He broke the law when they're breaking the law. Their new theme song. We should get rid of the Constitution and just have the words of breaking the law from Judas Priest. Crank it up. This should be the new Constitution. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Breaking the law, 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 breaking the law. And then, as our whole future's destroyed, we can chant USA, USA, USA. As they have checkpoints all over Boston and come in houses and point guns at women and drag them out by their hair and shoot up cars of women looking for Dorner, a black guy, shoot up white ladies in California and burn his cabin down and say they're going to burn it down and then lie to us and say they didn't burn it down. USA, USA, when you get cancer. USA, when the troops get nerve gas in Iraq and they don't give them treatment. USA, USA. They would never let our troops use DU up until 1991, and then 2003, because they knew it was a death sentence in all the Pentagon military medical reports. And they said, you know what? Use it. We don't care. A death sentence. One whiff, 20-something years off your life. Came out in the New York Times. Oh, guess what? 20-something years later, the Gulf War syndrome's real. It's nerve gas. Their brains are damaged. Oh, guess what? New Harvard study, of all things. Harvard School of Public Health. It is mercury causing autism to go up. Gee, we don't know where it's coming from. Oh, it's only on the vaccine vial, says the Marisol. That was in the New York Times last week. Oh, mercury's causing the autism to go up. Really? Really? I thought it was a conspiracy there. But it's not the vaccines, they say. No. They don't know what's doing it. I want to go out to break with the man that I'm calling, get the Hastings clip ready again. The man I'm calling Colonel William Barrett Travis Part 2. Because when he said we've all got to stand up and stop complying and stop going along with the lies, because they know journalists all know about all this info, we all need to start firing. When they said that, they said kill him because he's a leader. And you know what? His idea will go on. Remember the Alamo? Remember Hastings. Here it is.
The Obama administration has clearly declared war on the press. It's declared war on investigative journalists, our sources. I think the only recourse to this kind of behavior by the government is to say back to the government, we declare war on you, and from this point forward, we should no longer, as a media as a whole, cooperate in any manner with the government in terms of when we're doing national security stories. We should withdraw all our cooperation, and we should publish everything we know, because it's a free press. It's not a free except for when the government tells me to do it press. And we've been way too easygoing with these guys. We've let them get away with this for years. We've let them tell us what to print, what not to print. And I say be done with it, and everybody should just get together and fire back, because no one else is going to defend the press.
And they said, oh, really? The FBI started harassing him, following him, visiting. He said, I got a big story. I'm going off the radar. I'm going into hiding. Go read it. It's in the LA Times. Days after we told you, oh, that couldn't be a real email. Boom, there goes his car. And you see, that's the human spirit right there. Hastings is on the right side of history. Hastings is a man his wife and child can be proud of. Hastings is what I admire. Hastings is who I want to be. We're all Michael Hastings now. And I stand with Michael Hastings. And I may end up having his fate. I say, so be it. I'm committed and will never back down. All right. Now, we're going to go over some of the specs in the next segment and then go to your phone calls. But the model of car of the brand new Mercedes that Michael Hastings was driving has the special cruise control system where if it sees a car about to come into you, it will take control. And if it says you're speeding, it will take control. And these are the type of cars that are very easy to remote control. The Germans, the Japanese, and others have been putting these out the last few years. I think it's super creepy. I have driven one of my friends' Mercedes that does this. And if you start going over into another lane and there's a car anywhere near, it will pull you back over. Automatic control. And see, they're coming out with Google Cars. They're coming out with all of these systems. And they're going to argue and are already arguing that our cars are safer. So the computer needs to drive you. You can feel like you're driving, but really the autopilot is going to be driving. And again, this is the control it gives the system. Just like a Xbox Connect in your house uses wireless internet that can actually see through walls to scan your body, your face, everything. So he was driving a Mercedes C250. Now, here is Car and Driver. Here's an article out of Car and Driver. And I'm not saying this is how he was killed, okay? But people said, oh, yes, he was speeding at high rate of speed, and then his vehicle just blew up in the street. That's what multiple witnesses have said. Looks like a car bomb to me. But regardless, since this theory came out that maybe they remote controlled it, they had drone aircraft in World War II, the Germans and the U.S. did. People still think you don't have drone aircraft nowadays. What do you think the drones are? You know, I said on 9/11, we had evidence they were drone operating the aircraft, and gas was released on board the aircraft because the only real phone calls that got out from airphones were stewardesses coughing, saying there's gas, I can't breathe. You nerve gas everybody, then you remote control it. Turns out those planes had been fitted with that, and people go, you can't remote control planes. It's like, excuse me? They talked about putting it on all planes by law so hijackers couldn't take over. How do you stop the hacker hijacker? Especially if it's Skynet run by a bunch of globalists. So they're putting in a Skynet system. They're just going to use it to control us. Here's Car and Driver. Can your car be hacked? This came out in July of 2011. Currently, there's nothing to stop anyone with malicious intent and some computer programming skills from taking command of your vehicle. After gaining access, a hacker could control everything from which song plays on the radio to whether the brakes work to how fast your vehicle drives. Okay? And I'm seeing more and more deaths where they don't shoot you, where ambassadors and people they want to get rid of all over the world, when they're in a new vehicle, it just takes off wildly and drives right into a pylon. So be aware that that goes on. Now, maybe you don't believe car and driver. And you can look at that model of Mercedes. It has the system where the computer is already in control. We've got that on screen for folks that want to look at it. Driver assist to go with the flow. How about we say we don't want this? Just like I told you, OnStar's used to listen to you and kill your car if they're coming after you, and then years later they admitted it. Yeah, I was told by an engineer, folks. I was shown the documents before OnStar even came out. Just like I told you all of this. I had dinner last night with 2 senior engineers, and they were just laughing about how the public, doesn't believe the NSA is listening to everything. One was with AT&T and the other with another company I won't name, and they didn't tell me anything secret. They were just agreeing with me and saying it's unbelievable. And then agreed, yes, we are the NSA. Everybody's like, whoa, Google and Facebook and Amazon are all moving NSA and CIA computers into their buildings. They are the CIA. They are the NSA. The NSA and CIA are the lower level, and then they rotate in revolving doors into the companies where they make millions and billions. Don't you understand? It's a private New World Order that's exempt from the laws and the taxes, using government to set the rules to transfer all your wealth to them. I know I say that almost every segment, because that's the essence of the New World Order. We get communism and police in black uniforms standing around street corners. We get martial law while they fly around in luxury jets above us with life extension technologies. I told you 15 years ago they were already growing human organs in cows and harvesting them out. Now that's admitted all over the Tokyo News that for years they've been doing it, and now it's perfect. They can grow a new nose, new eyes, new heart, whatever you want.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson.
And the point is, I'm not even saying all this stuff's bad. The point is you need to know it's there. Let's go to this clip of DARPA. This is up on Infowars.com. This is Dr. Kathleen Fisher, a DARPA program manager, talks about the ability to hack into cars, computer systems. Now, this is up on Infowars.com right now. This has been going on for 20 years, folks. But let's go ahead and go to the clip. The whole clip's up on Infowars.com. I'm going to play just a short clip right now. Here it is.
It's not just traditional computers that we need to worry about. There are many other kinds of systems as well. The slide that's been omitted showed a result of the researchers at UCSD and the University of Washington hacking into the dashboard display of a typical American sedan, making it show that the car was going 140 miles an hour while in park. Drilling down a little bit, modern vehicles consist of between 30 and 100 embedded control units, which are essentially small computers connected via CAN bus. These cars are required by law to have a diagnostic port, typically located under the steering wheel, that allows mechanics to download diagnostic information and to perform software updates. In a first paper, the researchers from UCSD and the University of Washington showed that if they could touch the CAN bus through that diagnostic port, they could take over all of the functionality of the car that's controlled by software. And in a modern automobile, that's pretty much everything. The brakes are controlled by software because of anti-lock braking. The acceleration is controlled by software because of cruise control. And in those fancy new cars that can park themselves, even the steering is under software control.
All right, that's enough.
The reaction to this first paper...
That's 1 minute of a 10-minute video, Infowars.com, on the official DARPA channel. By the way, DARPA runs it all. DARPA is what Eisenhower warned about by name in 1961 in his farewell address. He said the technocratic elite controlling the military-industrial complex. He said, beware he said the main threat is that, you can pull up, we've played the clip before, is the technocratic elite that is in control of the military-industrial complex. So that's why we have to beware the military-industrial complex. Meanwhile, there were news articles all over the place, because people send them to me, making fun of us, saying Alex Jones says that Hastings' car was remote controlled, when I never said that. Callers brought it up, and I said, yes, they can remote control cars. And yes, they can hack in wirelessly and do it now if your car has Bluetooth. And but I believe it was a car bomb by the signature. Won't matter. I predict Rachel Maddow tomorrow will say that I said they remote controlled it. Just like I didn't say a tornado was sent by Obama to Oklahoma. She doesn't care. She just makes it up and says I do. That's how they operate. We're going to come back with your phone calls. I've got a bunch of other news as well I haven't gotten to yet, dealing with Snowden. I'm Alex Jones, your host, and you're listening to InfoWars Live. We're here 6 days a week on the radio, Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 3 p.m. Eastern, Sundays 5 to 7 Eastern, coming to you from deep in the heart of Texas, Austin. Then we have the weeknight InfoWars Nightly News that myself and my crew and my reporters host. First-rate news organization with a bias towards truth and liberty and freedom and fearlessness and a little bit of red-blooded God, guts, and guns. And that's just the way it is. And for that, we do not apologize. The good news is I don't normally go spend a bunch of time reading the comments on the LA Times and the Daily Caller and New York Magazine and all these people that wrote articles and pieces attacking anyone that questioned Michael Hastings' car blowing up when he said he was on the run from the FBI. In fact, they made jokes about that and said it wasn't true until his military buddies and everybody that knew him and his wife, he sent us this email. He said, I'm on the run. I've got the big story. They're after me. Boom. I mean, help me. They're after me. Boom. Don't look at any foul play. Conspiracy theories. This is what gets me so angry and so frustrated. I'm still trying to get the public to understand that there is an NSA. Back in like 1996, I talk about the NSA and get calls going, that's illegal, violates the 4th and 5th Amendment. There's no such thing. I remember 10 years ago or 13 years ago now, I got the census before last, and I got one of the long forms asking stocks, bonds, sexual persuasion, all this stuff. People didn't believe me when I got that because only 1 in 10 homes got one. Now they're doing a yearly census and business censuses. And in Australia, they ask you your sexual preference. And if you don't answer it, they arrest you. That article's on drudgereport.com on the left-hand side. With the local newscast going, you'll be arrested if you don't. You have a right to not speak. You have a right to not self-incrimination. You have a right to not fill out government paperwork all day. It's called no slavery. It's all just so out of control. And all the taser deaths, 500 plus, and then one of our listeners sent us the police report and all of it, an 11-year-old girl who's autistic, who became autistic when the state came and the CPS made them when she was like 12, or like they said 9, take a bunch of vaccines, and now she doesn't know who she is, and we get the guy on the air, and then now she's autistic walking down the road, and then they taser her in the back, and then the witnesses all say the police lied about what happened. It's just scary. I have video of the police coming to a house and forcing their way into the home, cussing at people over 3-inch grass in the yard. They now arrest people all over the U.S. for high grass. The government ships in narcotics, runs white slavery, puts cancer viruses in vaccines, hydrofluorosilicic water. The water has hydrofluorosilicic acid added to it. And they're the good guys. It's all about worshiping government, and they want to intimidate you. More and more government has that crazy bearing of a thug. And that should make you get aggressive and angry and get involved and organize, not just cower in fear. I have a video that's made national news now. It was first on local news in Tennessee, but since we talked about it on Friday, it's now been national news, which is good. That's InfoWars' real contribution, is that we take stories that are regional or alternative, and we make them national. Things that they don't want talked about. Where people have complained about their water quality, and the state water quality guy goes, don't complain or we'll charge you with terrorism. And that's what they're now saying. Protesting is terrorism. Having a free speech is terrorism. Freedom is terrorism. And it's not Al-Qaeda anymore all this is for. Remember I told you, Homeland Security is for the American people. And you're like, oh, yeah, right. No, it's for Al-Qaeda. Our government ran Al-Qaeda then. They run it now publicly. And they admit Homeland Security is for you and your family. But they can't get away with this if they don't have the support of the people. And a lot of the people in government are waking up as well. They need our support. Government's not our enemy. And good people in government are not our enemy. But people that declare war on us and attack us, they're enemies of liberty and freedom and justice. And we've got to start calling them out and getting aggressive, ladies and gentlemen, or there's no future. But as I was saying, I don't usually go read the comments on these sites, but I decided to look at them, and no exaggeration, go look at stories about Michael Hastings, and you have to read 3 or 4 pages of comments. We're talking 20, 30, 40 comments before you find one person agreeing that he wasn't blown up. And that's all I can say to the establishment is you can't kill us all. I mean, what are you going to do? And then I think maybe they don't care. They know they car bomb him in front of all these witnesses that people are going to know it's a car bomb, and it's a message to journalists. Well, I've gotten your message before that. I'm not stupid. I know you guys can kill me, but God can bring you to justice as well. But for all these Christians out there that think you're not going to go through adversity, you're never going to have to face evil, you're going to get teleported out of here, I don't think God's going to know you when you get to the pearly gates if you didn't stand up and have courage now. We don't need sunshine patriots, ladies and gentlemen. We need people that are willing to tell the truth now. I mean, I think about why I'm so frustrated sometimes on this broadcast and get upset. It's because I've covered 2 stacks of news, and I've got like 10 other stacks here, and I've got 15 people on hold over here who I want to talk to, loaded phone lines. And what do? Tommy in Tennessee, go ahead. You're on the air. I think Michael Hastings is Colonel Travis. What do you think?
Yeah, good possibility of that. But I got another question for you. I don't see how you can support this movie of Superman. I've noticed ever since you have that you quit talking about the Stalin era, and Stalin's name means Man of Steel. And that's what this movie is. I mean, it's the same people that brought us The Dark Knight Rises.
Well, I think Superman, the Man of Steel, is an anti-collectivist message. Anybody watching that could see that. And all I was saying, the reason we do movie reviews is millions of people tune in to hear that, and millions watch it online. And I can't tell you how many people I've run into that have woken up from our movie reviews because they're into that. So all I'm doing is taking an issue and giving it a positive review, a negative review, or a mixed review. And all I'm doing is reaching out to people outside of the crowd. I don't think Stalin just means steel. And then his nickname was Man of Steel by the 40s, not really in 33 when Superman came out. And the Man of Steel, I mean, you've got Iron Man triathlons. That doesn't mean that, they're with Stalin or something. And look, I'm not perfect either. I went and spoke in England to a crowd of 2,000 people. They turned away over 1,000 above Bilderberg. And there were people up there on the stage, some of which I didn't agree with. And people made an issue out of that. Well, there was a liberal member of parliament spoke, and there was this person. I'm not my brother's keeper. I stand for what I stand for. And I was critical of The Dark Knight with its pro-Illuminati message. I think a Jacobin French Revolution message. Well, later I read they actually said that he was modeled after the French Revolution. I'd already said that on my own because that's what it was. Truth is the truth. And it had one writer in it who wasn't involved in the others. And it's just a positive message. But what do you think about the death of Hastings? You think that should be investigated, or it's no big deal?
It's a big deal, but it won't be investigated. I mean, I kind of, another thing is here lately, I mean, I'm a prison planning member too, Alex, and you've been wanting to buddy up a bed, but you never say nothing about him having cushions of skull and bones on his couch and stuff.
Sir, I am not buddying up to Glenn Beck. I've not even talked about Glenn Beck here. People call in about him. We don't screen your phone calls. And Glenn Beck can say whatever he wants about me. I turn the other cheek. I got bigger things to worry about, okay? But thank you for the call, sir. I'm going to come back and try to take some other calls. We don't screen your calls, so they're always all over the map, which makes them very interesting. Stay with us. Nobody rides for free. And there are laws to this universe. We're standing up for the free press. When Russia kills journalists or Mexico kills journalists, our media, at least in the past, talked about it and tried to support them. I'm talking about Hastings because we are doing something about the IRS persecuting the Tea Party. and pro-life groups. We are doing something about the NSA spying. We are doing something about warrantless checkpoints that we've gotten shut down over and over again because they're unconstitutional. It's a constant fight. And I don't like people that call in and criticize me and then say, oh, there's no hope, nobody cares. We know the truth in the court of public opinion. That's why they're gearing up a police state. We're going to win. But we have to have that attitude. Let's go ahead and go to Dean in Costa Rica. Dean, you're on the air. Welcome.
Oh, hi, Alex.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, I really believe that the Hastings thing was an FBI because it doesn't have the signature of a mafia hit. They don't go around and bang, bang, shoot them up anymore. They're more sophisticated. You never hear about these guys going to jail for money laundering or tax evasion or being processed through the court system. You never hear these guys about being busted because they wiretapped their phones. It's because they are our banking institutions. They are our telecommunications system. They are our justice system.
Well, look, the FBI took that Zarnev Boston bombing suspect friend who was a witness to it and shot him in the top of the head a bunch. And then they killed 2 FBI agents that were investigating it. I mean, they're killing people all the time. I'm saying it's massively intensifying. And Obama signed the NDAA, that's totally illegal, saying he can kill U.S. citizens anytime he wants. And the word is they're giving the hitmen these national security orders. So, yeah, the FBI's now, I agree. I think the FBI probably was the who was involved. Go ahead.
Definitely involved, because back in the 60s, the mafia adopted the policy, the pen is mightier than a sword. They can do more damage with a stroke of a pen, and I knew the guy that put this policy, his name was Uncle Zip, because zip, 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 with a stroke of a pen, he can do more damage than killing somebody in a bang, bang, shoot 'em up.
Now, listen, Obama was trained by the weathermen, and they planned to put 50 million Americans in re-education camps. That came out in trials. We've played the audio here. And I mean, look, they're doing this. They'll kill a whole village to get one guy they want to kill with drones. Of course. I mean, they blew Hastings up. And the question is, will the media... Snowden thinks they want to kill him. Of course they want to kill him. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Bob in New Jersey. Bob, go ahead.
Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Good, brother.
I got to thank you for waking me up. I got turned on to you about 3 months ago, and I've never been more awake since. I wanted to talk to you about the Michael Hastings thing.
Yes.
Did you happen to, are you familiar with this Loud Labs? Did you see the video? The one who, you know, with the guy who did the...
Yes, we have the video. We have the people that drive around to police scenes in L.A.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about that? I mean, are you familiar with them? Do you have any contact with them?
Well, there's a video. No, that's just one of those police video group, people that go out and shoot video in public, a news unit, private news unit. And it shows the car driving, it looks like about 80 miles an hour by, maybe the same car, and then you see it all burning a few minutes later when he gets there.
Yeah, did you happen to watch that one?
Yes, sir. I mean, we have the videos. Yes, sir. What's your point on the video?
Well, my point on it is this. You remember the Harley guy from 9/11, right?
Yes.
Okay, how he set the narrative for the government. You know, I've seen it from start to finish.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll have, they'll have operatives there putting a script out. And undoubtedly that happened on 9/11.
Well, that's what I feel like this guy was. If you go back and listen to it after I speak with you, okay, the things that you notice, like, for instance, when he first gets there, and driving the car, it sounds like a cop car. He's got a police radio in there and everything. That's neither here nor there. But when he first gets there, this is supposed to be a citizen, right? The cops move out of his way. Like, that's kind of weird.
I hear you. I think that unit may actually go and do foyers and get the police video as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to contact that group. I mean, it's probably innocuous. I looked on their site. They got a ton of police stuff on there and accident and fires. And every city, as people know, has private groups that go out and shoot video and then sell it. Let's go to Nick in North Carolina. Good to hear from you, Bob. Nick, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hi. 2 quick points. Number 1, the NSA prison program is nothing new. Like, what do people think the Patriot Act was for, where it granted government position...
I know, and the NSA director went before Congress and said, we don't listen to any phones, we don't listen to anybody. It's just a total lie.
And then with, Operation Echelon in the 90s. I mean, yeah. And my other point is that I looked up on Wikipedia a list of journalist assassinations, and Breitbart, Gary Webb, and Michael Hastings were not on that list. And I want your take on whether this trend of suiciding journalists is the thread that is holding up the iron.
Well, I mean, this is what I have to say to the corporate prostitutes, sellouts. You're destroying your own future, your children's own future, and it's on record that the government has assassinated a lot of journalists and other people, and to just sit there and be in denial about it is extremely, extremely dangerous. I appreciate your call. I mean, it's time for the media to just stop being lapdogs. Let's go ahead and talk to Zachary in Ohio. Zachary?
How are you?
Good. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because I've been a long-time listener, it's the first time I've called, but, you know, I can hear the frustration in you sometimes, and I'm a licensed mental health professional, and I know how hard it can be sometimes when you see somebody down a certain path, and it's like they're just like a zombie walking. But the Quran tells Prophet Muhammad that, you know, will you kill yourself with grief if they do not believe? So sometimes remember that, you know, you're doing your job by speaking the truth and giving the truth. And whether somebody accepts the truth or not is not the issue. It's that you're doing your mission, and that hopefully, God willing, we can stand in front of our Creator and know that we've done our job in front of tyranny. So
I hear you. It's so ridiculous now. I mean, they taser people for not answering questions. That's torture. They call it pain compliance. And now they're gearing up to take our private bank accounts. And we've just allowed the worst people in the world to run things. We're in grave danger, and that's why I'm frustrated. God bless you, Zachary. Good to hear from you. James in South Carolina, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Got a couple of things, Alex. One of them is, do you remember Don Bowles?
It rings a bell.
Okay, he was killed in a car bomb, I believe, in Phoenix, Arizona. 40 newspapers from all over the United States sent investigators to investigate the crime because he was a journalist. This Hastings thing seems like something that needs to be done that way. I don't have a lot of money, but I could send you a little bit.
No. I mean, we need to put pressure on the media. But it's already happening. When almost every comment in the story says, we know they killed him, and now it's come out that he was going into hiding and on the run. I mean, you've got to investigate that. And whether it's Breitbart or Gary Webb or him, remember, they lied about Pat Tillman and said he charged an al-Qaeda nest and then was killed, and it turned out they murdered him. So that's my point, is that they do lie. And who was he investigating? McChrystal. Who covered up the Pat Tillman death? McChrystal.
Well, are you saying that the Hastings thing is going to be investigated heavily?
No, they've tried to not investigate it. In the past, they would investigate it. And we're going to try to force the corporate whore media to investigate it, or they're going to be obsolete. I mean, they already have almost no readers or viewers because they act like this.
When Don Bowles was killed, 40 newspapers sent people to Arizona to investigate, and they did get, you know, some action out of this.
Exactly. My question is, where is the instinct of the idiot media to make fun of InfoWars for saying this is clearly a car bomb and an assassination, and then they sit there like cowards thinking they've got a future, just laughing at another murdered journalist? They murdered Aaron Swartz. They're murdering people. And then sitting back going, yeah, when are you going to get murdered? Like it's entertainment or something. They're going to murder our bank accounts. They're going to murder our future if we don't stand up. When good people do nothing, evil takes over. God bless you, sir. I hear you. I'll look into that case. Let's go to Eric in Alberta, Canada. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Greetings, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
Just calling from the Royalist Redcoat Constitutional Monarchy up here. The Michael Hastings thing, I saw that video the last guy talked about. So I'm not 100% there with you yet, because he was driving really fast, and he made some quick turns that seemed like how could a computer make that quick of a turn?
Okay, but computers can make even better turns. But here's the issue. If they are saying it's stupid to look at foul play, how would you say that when he said he was going into hiding, and that they were after him? I mean, I hope I don't say, they're after me, help me, and then I'm dead. And people are like, well, people always say that. They're after me, help me. Look, I'm out of time. I'm sorry to all the other callers. Damien and John and Adrian and Mr. Lawyer and everybody else. Back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central, Infowars.com. Follow us on Twitter, Real Alex Jones. All the videos, info, and a lot more. A lot of news we didn't cover is at Infowars.com. Great job to the crew and our sponsors and our affiliates. God bless you all. The 23rd day of June, 2013. All right, we are going to try to cover a lot of ground here today, looking at what the kleptocratic establishment is up to and ways that humanity is trying to awaken itself and also organize against all of this tyranny. But I really want today to try to calmly go over this news and information and really have the listeners take notes, whether they be physical or mental, and to go follow along either today or tomorrow or tonight, whenever you have time, with the information I'm going to present here so that you can discover for yourself how much trouble we're in. The United States is a very wealthy, powerful country because we've had more liberty and freedom than other nations. That does not mean that we were some paragon of justice, but compared to most other nations, we have empowered the middle class, we have empowered the individual. But because of that, we became the most powerful nation on earth, and then corrupt influences moved in to capitalize on that power and wealth. And now, as tyranny takes hold and as crony monopoly systems take hold in government, interfacing with major offshore corporations, we see the justice and the liberty, and along with that, the prosperity exiting very, very quickly. And we have a mix of malaise, general naivete in the public that mixed with high-tech propaganda and complexity in government is a recipe for allowing government tyranny to grow to a level that has never before been seen on the face of this globe. And make no mistake, no historian would disagree with you. I challenge you to find one that would, if you make the point that government has been the greatest non-natural killer of masses of people in history. University of Hawaii did a study a few years ago and found that conservatively government in the 20th century alone were forced to report on what WikiLeaks and then everybody else in the real media was talking about on Wednesday and Thursday. And that is that Hastings said that he was going into hiding and that he was being followed by the FBI and that they were harassing his friends and family. Now, the fact that they've had a bunch of old dinosaur media and then other fake alternative media come out and make fun of people, New York Daily News, New York Magazine, Daily Caller, come out and say, oh, look at the crazies. They're saying that he could have been murdered. It would be surprising if he was not murdered with all of this evidence. And how would you have someone who's reporting on big national security stories and who is exposing top generals and people are losing their jobs over it, and then he comes out on television and says we should release all the NSA data, we should have the press stop complying with this corrupt government? He said that about a week before his car blew up. And I've looked at the evidence. It looks like a car bomb. But even that particular model of Mercedes is absolutely remote controllable. And that's in Car and Driver. I'm going to be showing you that news where they could drive him at 100 miles an hour into the tree, except I've seen what the eyewitnesses said of the explosion and how it basically came up to rest up against a tree, not really into the tree. But it's a bigger issue here, not that the establishment kills people, but that the media is so compliant in going along with this and then criticizing people. I mean, you'd be crazy to not look at a murder investigation, to not look at it being foul play. But day one, they said no foul play, which is always another big telltale sign. We've got that big story. We've got police busting people's houses over 3-inch grass in their yards. We've got the latest geopolitically and the latest on Snowden planning to go to Ecuador. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, we're here live. And then I come back Sundays live, and we're live 4 to 6 p.m. also Central Standard Time. And I want to thank you for joining us on this live Sunday broadcast. It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. We're live, my friends. It is the 23rd day of June, 2013. I am your host, Alex Jones, and we are going to be live here for the next 2 hours as we are every single Sunday. And, of course, we come back weekdays live 11 to 2 Central as well. I have absolutely spent hours Friday and yesterday on Saturday and today thinking about the things I want to say here today. And I've probably said this 100 times in just the last few years when I start a broadcast, and I've never really succeeded in getting in that quiet, focused place and then just presenting the real essence of what's going on to everybody so that we can understand what we're facing as a culture and a society. So when we start the next segment, I will start plowing into the first big report that I want to get into. The case of Michael Hastings, the associate editor of Rolling Stone magazine, who had recently been planning to release a lot of really powerful information concerning General Petraeus, the CIA, NSA, you name it. He was working on all of it. So we're going to be getting into all of that today, and the fact that hiding in plain view on Friday, the TV stations in L.A. and then the L.A. Times, in the 100 years preceding 2001, if you look at the previous 100 years, government confirmed killed 262 million people. Men, women, and children that were non-military deaths. I'm not talking about people dying in the firebombing of Dresden, Germany, or the fragmentation bombing of London, vice versa. I'm talking about government lining people up and shooting them or working them to death in death camps. And so my great concern, being a novice historian and someone who's into common sense, is that we're taught that government is like mommy's milk and the best thing since air conditioning, and that all it can do is good for us, and that anybody that questions it is a traitor. If you go up to Infowars.com today, there is a Anthony Freda graphic on the front page in the featured news area, and it's a giant Uncle Sam hand pointing down to a man on the plane, and he says, I think we should restore the rule of law and Bill of Rights, stop waging illegal wars, and stop illegal surveillance of American citizens. That's what the man is saying, the American. And Uncle Sam is pointing his finger saying, extremist. And that's not satire at all. That's actually what the system does. You see, once a country starts putting up with corruption, and once corruption takes hold and becomes the economy, and once the mafia system of government and gangs gets in place, and once the crime is inculcated into the culture, like a too big to fail for the offshore banks that run our country by design, into the ground, once they can sell you on we're too big to fail, you can't remove us. The cancer has metastasized. Embrace the cancer. Once we get to that point, there is probably no coming back. And the corrupt hordes of people on the dole, people with corporate welfare, government, and then all the accompanying bureaucracies of groups that have scores to settle and different cliques and groups that are allied with the power structure, they will go out and feed on and abuse and hunt down the good and virtuous. That's how tyranny works. Because the good and virtuous won't organize and get together and defend themselves generally, and they can't even imagine the tyranny because their brains don't work like that. They have no autoimmune system to it, and the power structure will demonize groups as things begin to contract to rob them. It isn't that you'll even resist them. It isn't that the system will come after you because you fight against them. It will come after you because you're not part of a crew. You're not part of a gang. You're not part of a power structure. This is how the world has always worked. Our founders said, we'll get the middle class together, organize with weapons, and have rules that we will absolutely go after any big government that tries to violate any of these basic rights, because we've seen throughout history that when they go after these rights, hell follows. So it was about a gang of liberty, a gang of freedom, a gang of independence, a gang of the individual. That we, the individuals, would band together when people tried to form gangs to come feed on us. But we were taught it was sexy and cool not to want to be part of the Liberty Gang. We were taught it was sexy and cool to be corrupt. We were taught that that's how you got ahead, by not caring about your neighbors, by not caring about anybody in the society but yourself. We were taught that laughing at people that warn about big government and warn about the Bill of Rights and Constitution was somehow a shield against tyranny. We were sold cultural death. We don't have a culture in America. What, you think football's our culture? You think acting tough's the culture, or acting trendy's the culture? People regurgitate and reflect what the culture put out by Hollywood, which is a weaponized culture, which is a system to where you don't really have a culture. And if you have no culture and you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. And we're at that historic crossroads. I've got big news coming up after the break, where either the corruption all comes out in the open, as it is, because it's emerging, it's taking over, it's metastasizing, and we reject it. Our body beats the cancer,